Councillor Alfonso, Councillor Chase Green, and Councillor Jacobs. What really is the issue that we are dealing with now?
So it's an issue. It's an issue that speaks to hypocrisy. It speaks to the self-serving nature of the APNU-led council, and it's really emblematic of the mismanagement and the maladministration that has plagued Georgetown for 57 plus years. And so it thoroughly disgusted us when it was sprung completely by surprise towards the end of yesterday's statutory meeting. And we thought that we would take the time to discuss it since it's of interest to the public.
Mm-hmm. And what is this issue, Councillor Chase Green?
Well, at yesterday's statutory meeting, on the agenda was a policy document for institutional rates to be given to political parties. As members of the PPPC Civic, we totally disagree with it. We think all political parties should pay the rates and taxes because we are asking the ordinary citizens to do so.
Correct.
And we're also complaining every day that we are not getting money to do our basic duties in the city, collecting garbage simply. And here you come now to ask political parties to not pay the rates and taxes. I mean, how fair is it to an ordinary citizen who comes out to pay the taxes from the very first quarter of the year? And so we're disagreeing with it. But yesterday it was passed by a majority decision. And so we think it's best to let the citizens know that while you are suffering, the PNC-led council is making a soft bed for its people in the political party because it's they who will be benefiting from it. And so it's not fair to the citizens.
You've been part of the City Council for quite a number of years. Is there any provision within the bylaws of the city which allow for this sort of thing to be done? And what really is the sort of the exception with the case that we are looking at right now?
Well, I saw on the document the mayor is using section 214 of the Municipal and District Council Act. But the 214 of the Municipal and District Council Act says nothing about political parties. It's quite clear, and I have the law here that states no.
So it speaks clearly to
A council shall have the power to exempt from liability to pay rates, either wholly or in part, in respect of the properties listed in the section, the owners of, and these are the persons who can be exempted, any property used for the advancements of religion, education, or social welfare, not with a view to profit, any property used mainly for the purpose of open-air games or open-air athletic sports and occupied by a club, society, or other organizations which is not established or conducted with a view in profit. Property used exclusively for the purpose of a hospital, dispensary, or public health institution. Then it goes on and say, but there's no way for political parties to listed in this law. And if you're going to introduce a new institutional rate, in my own knowledge of what is happening, that needs to be gazetted, not by a simple policy of the council.
Correct.
But we still need to have some guidance on that, and they ought to have sought guidance from maybe the Attorney General's office or some legal officer to find out if that can happen, because the law was quite clear. And so we're upset about that.
For a party like the PPC, I mean, would that party not benefit from this arrangement as well? You're representatives of the party.
Yeah, I'm very happy that you mentioned that. And you know, we represent in the PPC and council, but we also represent the people of Georgetown.
Correct.
And that's most important for us. I mean, we hear every day, just like my fellow councillor Alfonso mentioned, you know, the APNU-led council calling for more help from government and, you know, the big hullabaloo. But you have a clear case here that they're trying to make it easy on themselves. The question we need to ask as, you know, which party owes the main city council? Why is this being done? Why is this being done in such a hurry? Because while this document was presented to us yesterday, we had a number of questions, and on spot we had persons amending the document. So let's add this. So it clearly shows that the document, you know, wasn't ready. Even if you want to pass it, it wasn't ready because you had a number of issues with that particular document. But citizens need to understand who has their best interests at heart, and it's clearly not these set of councillors in terms of the APNU councillors. You're seeing it clearly. Political parties should pay their fees, fair shares, because their council is obligated to move out their garbage and all the other services that council should be doing. So they should pay their taxes. And just like my fellow councillor said, Ms. Chase Green, there's no provision in the law for it. And the law actually speaks to having the minister has the power to exempt properties or other places under that same section 214. So it's showing clearly that the right process or procedure wasn't followed.
And if you were to examine the way that that policy was written, the way that policy document was written, the powers were clearly abrogated not to the council, but to a committee comprised of senior members of the town council's finance committee. Now, the finance committee is composed of almost exclusively all PNC councillors, save one. So we have one person on that council. That, yes, there's a vote there, but will be clearly outvoted. So they have abrogated themselves, not just they've upgraded to the council not just the power to exempt political parties from paying their fair share of rates and taxes, money that the city desperately needs to provide essential services to citizens, but then in there they have by virtue of controlling the council and that powerful finance committee, they have given themselves all the power to decide who would receive exemptions and under what conditions. So it's very sinister, and also if you consider the way that it was rammed through, as Councillor Jacobs said, it wasn't the policy document wasn't even properly done. They had so many corrections that they had to do to it, and regardless, they corrected they made corrections in situ there, without sending it back. So there's clearly a rush. They clearly want to pass this by bullying it through there, and it's something that we are completely disgusted by. It is disgusting to see the self-serving nature of representatives of the people who were meant to be serving the people, but in the end abrogate all the power to themselves so that they can create a soft bed for them. It cannot stand, and the citizens of Georgetown and Guyana at large should be aware of the nature of the insidious, sinister nature of a policy document like this, of a move like this. It cannot stand. It cannot stand.
So based on your explanations, the PNC dominates the organs within the council, and so they're making a lot of the decisions. Now, for the person, for the citizen of Georgetown who is viewing this or who's listening to this, when you think about the services that the city council provides to the citizenry, are we at a place right now where you think, based on consulting your constituents, that people are comfortable with the services that are currently being provided by city council? Like, are we even at a place where we could just say to people, yeah, you don't have to pay this money, we good?
No,
absolutely not.
You mentioned services. Do they really provide services? Everything is basically shouldered on the government. You look at roads, you look at drainage, you look at the health department, you look at training. The government basically shoulders every single thing and more for the mayor and city council. And, we need to be honest. How can a council that is basically put together by members of political parties try and come up with a policy that will help them in some sort of way? It seems to be kind of a conflict of interest, if you want to put it that way. How can you then decide what you will pay, and then you go in front of the citizens and preach, listen, you need to pay, but I shouldn't pay? It really doesn't make any sense if you really think about it. And if you're going to sit around that table and make that sort of decision, it tells you a whole lot of what your level of thinking and what you really want to achieve for the citizens of Georgetown.
I want you all to help me and sort of outline the context for this. To Miss Sandra from Back Circle, what services are to be provided to Miss Sandra, and what is she really and truly receiving right now? Like, how much more should the council be doing? in terms of the list of services that are supposed to be provided?
Miss Sandra's supposed to be receiving a fair share of collection of garbage from her in her constituency, proper roads, proper drainage, proper lights, proper security,
And public health.
and public
Fogging up.
health. Because we're supposed to have public health inspectors going in to inspect the yards to make sure there's proper drainage, there's no holding of water in the air that could breed mosquitoes, that if you have a pit latrine, it is properly clean. All sorts of things comes under public health for building. We don't have public health inspectors going in there now. I don't know when last a public inspector would have visited. You don't have roads being done. It's being done by the government. The city hall has not done roads in years, and they're responsible for all the main roads in the city of Georgetown. While the government, there's council roads and there's the government roads. Our roads, we have done none. Most recently, the government would have gone into East Rhineveld and would have done all the roads. Every single day, you get complaints from the residents in East Rhineveld with regards to the collection of garbage. At one time, that was a peak area that you have twice a week collection. Now they only get a once a week collection. And so therefore you can understand the buildup of garbage. When you have that buildup of garbage in your community, and then you have rainfall with the overflowing of garbage and that water, and it's floating all over, and then you have septic tanks in some of those areas, and there's an overflow of septic tanks. There's a serious public health issue in those communities. You got breeding of roaches, breeding of rats, the whole thing. You got worms coming up. I mean, public health, and then you have children having to go to the hospital. You got rashes, you got diarrhea, you got hepatitis, and the list goes on and on. And you would have heard yesterday at our report from the doctor, our chief medical officer, there was an increase in colds and so in some communities because of people who visited our health center. And so therefore, right now Miss Sandra is not getting the kind of service that is expected to be given by the city council. If Miss Sandra have a dead now, she has nowhere to bury the dead at the cemetery because we're out of space.
And out of money to create more space.
Out of money to create more space, and we're trying, or they're trying their best to make something happen right now at the cemetery to facilitate that. But those are responsibilities of the mayor and council of the city of Georgetown. Not yesterday, not today, not last week, not last, since in the 60s when 2801 was produced. All those were outlined of what we're supposed to do. But we have not been doing that. We have not been servicing the city, the citizens, as we ought to. And yes, we are grateful that the PPP government has now come in, and there's lots of drainage works going on in many of the communities. There are lots of roads being done, lights are being done, and so therefore everything has a cost. And if you look at the costs that the government puts in cash value at the end of the year to city council, it's going to go into nearly $1 billion or more.
More than
Billions
$1
of-
billion. Billions. Them roads
I
alone.
was just trying to be very cautious.
No.
Sorry, I jumped in
I'm
right
gonna be
here.
blunt. It would be billions of
Billions of
dollars.
dollars.
Billions. And what an indictment that is.
And I mean, and you sit there and you make laws to exempt people from paying taxes.
To exempt themselves.
Yourself from
Right.
paying taxes when
Right.
you ought to be paying the taxes. Because come January, Miss Sandra might be the very first person that lines up in that compound to pay her taxes because she wants the services. But you are now willing to give it to Miss Sandra. You're willing to give it to a political party. We are from a political party and we're objecting to it. We think our political party should pay the fair share of taxes because they occupy the city. They are benefiting from the same services that we have to offer. The collection of garbage that we're supposed to offer. Collection of garbage, clean drains, clean roads, lights and everything, even though we don't provide it. And we collect the money. So everybody should be paying the fair share of taxes.
This situation with, in terms of these creating of exemptions, it doesn't feel like it's a new thing under this particular life cycle of the council. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a situation sometime before that was challenged as well. The vice president had commented on it, regarding the intention of, I think it was the mayor or something, in terms of the process for
Amnesty,
exemptions?
yeah.
And they
Amnesty?
call it amnesty.
So what was that? What is the connection between that and this?
Well,
Go ahead, madam.
go ahead.
As regards the amnesty, that has been happening for councils. Councils have been doing that since I joined the council in 1994. This is my 30th year. I need to retire
Congrats.
now. They've been giving exemption, amnesty to property owners to try to bring them up to scratch. But what we have found is that when you give, especially it's alleged most of the private places we give the amnesty to, they don't pay back. Because when you clear your debt, and we want you to start fresh from 2025 come, you don't pay. 2026 you don't pay. 2027 you don't pay. You wait for amnesty to come in 2028. And then you get the interest waiver and you pay the demand, and that's the rule that is happening.
And to add to that, what was concerning for us as PPP C councilors is that there's no standard that is applied throughout. So everybody would, if you're going to get amnesty, everybody gets the same deal. But what that led to, what that lack of standardized procedure led to, is a lot of backroom deals that, let's say, right, suspected or alleged backroom deals, where people got different deals and so on. And so really it again could lead or allegedly has led to unequal treatment for different people, for different people there. And so that needs to stop. The city is there to serve the interests of the people of Georgetown. The city council is there to serve the interests of the people of Georgetown, and not their friends and family of a political party. That needs to stop, and that's why we find this development so insidious and disgusting. That's
All within the context of a cash-strapped council.
Oh, exactly.
But all of it has happened now. The PNC has used its majority in the council to push this thing through. What is the next step?
So, according to law, this shouldn't happen. So, I think the citizens need to understand what's happening at the Mayor City Council, and make their voices, because this is what we're doing now. We're putting it to them. They can come out and say something. We've just discussed something that we're thinking about. I don't want to disclose it now, but we're going to be working to see how we can try our best to correct this situation, because like I mentioned earlier, we believe that the citizens, whatever we do, need to benefit the citizens. And if we're a political party, we definitely need to hold up our end of the stick. But what's clear in council is that whatever that particular party wants or desire at any particular time, they'll work hard to get it. And not necessarily work hard, but just be more forceful by having majority. So just a quick example. For example, the billboards that are around Georgetown. It's something that we had mentioned numerous meetings before in terms of finding out who own these billboards and, what they pay, their fees, see if we can put together a fee structure. But it fell on deaf ears. Myself would stand up and speak about it, but yesterday it was some sort of spectacle. I don't know for what reason, but again, I'm mentioning, this was something that was mentioned months ago, but now, yes, I want to do it, so then it should. And this is the general attitude that we see in the Mayor City Council. If Councilor Alfonso has a very strong point, because he's known as the guy who said, listen, let's put this thing on a timeline and let's get it done. Sometimes it do happen, but more often than not, no. Unless they really want it to happen. So citizens need to understand who has their best interests at heart, and this clearly shows whose interest is at heart. It's a particular political party. Because I'm representing the PPC, I'm saying we should pay taxes because that is our obligation to keep the city clean. I mean, we don't do it properly, but to keep the city clean. So we're saying we should pay.
Correct. And just to clarify, when you said we don't do it properly, we meant the city council. City council, right? Because the central government unfortunately has to allow city council to clean the city. That power is theirs, and that's one of their responsibilities. That's one of their few remaining responsibilities. The situation is so dire there. Every month, the city pays between 110 to 117 million dollars in payroll. Right, 70% of the city's yearly revenues goes towards the payroll. There's hardly any money there to do anything else, to provide any of the other basic services that residents need and pay for and demand. And yet we're sitting here discussing this issue where they would have taken the power of majority to pass through this disgusting policy to basically exempt political parties. And we don't want it. We don't want the exemption. But their political parties from paying any their fair share of rates and taxes. That cannot be. That speaks to their overall to their overall thinking and their goals for being in power, for having power. It's not to really serve the interests of Guyanese. It's not. Just this alone it speaks to their purpose. And their mission, it's to serve themselves. So that is disgusting.
But in the first instance, when this matter was raised, if I can recall, it was raised by the mayor who said, "Oh, I would have received a letter from a particular political party
right,
asking about it." You can recall
yes,
that?
Yes,
and
yes.
I got up and I objected. I said, that cannot be dealt with at this meeting. If you have that, you have to bring it as an agenda item at a statutory meeting.
This happened yesterday?
No, this
was
is
before.
prior. Yeah. And eventually, I don't know who sat together to do this policy, because no PPP member would have been invited for this policy document.
So this comes as seemingly a request from a political party. I think we can probably assume which political party it was. And then it's now being actioned.
It's now being actioned.
So what is supposed to happen, or what happens? The council runs on a committee basis. So what happens? You then go to that committee, you have your discussions, you come up with a recommendation, and then it comes to full council for approval. But in this case, we didn't even see the discussion surrounding this policy. The policy just came for approval, which, I mean, and then it's clear. Right, it's clear bullyism, it's hypocrisy. But something that caught my attention yesterday. So recently, for the 9th time, this government, through the National Enhancement Committee, cleaned the entire Guyana. And let's be frank and honest. We have a problem with garbage, not only in Georgetown, but we have a problem with garbage right around Guyana in terms of littering, in terms of persons understanding and taking responsibility for their actions. So there's a number of initiatives that you have to undertake for that to happen. So one of them is having these sorts of initiatives, these cleanup campaigns where somebody from a particular community can come out and clean
and inspire
them just in front of your apartment. So you have a sense of you want to ownership. You want to make sure
Correct.
It remains the same way. A particular councillor got up and said that he don't see the reason or purpose in this. It makes no sense. So how you can change that culture? You start with education. You start with you make sure you have proper enforcement. You start with these initiatives. There's a number of things. A waste management plan. So this is a start, and it's being led by government. You should actually be ashamed to say something like that, because the government has to come and clean up in somewhere that you're supposed to be controlling. So I just want persons to understand the level of thinking. I mean, the VP usually use 2 words, but I don't want to say it now, of those political parties. But just understand the level of thinking of those parties, and those persons that represent those parties.
So as we give closing words, I'll start off with Councillor Alfonso. What are your closing words as it relates to all of this?
To the citizens of Georgetown and to the citizens of Guyana, be guided. This here is it speaks to who really has your interest in mind. If a political party is willing to come and bully through and ram through this disgusting policy, this disgusting document that will only serve themselves, to the detriment of your community, to the detriment of your city, then be guided. Know who really has your best interest at heart.
Councillor Trisgreen?
Well, this document speaks volume of the political party that is leading and having it done. And if the other councils or NDCs that are led by this political party should do that in their community or their other municipality that are led by them, you could understand the amount of money that would be lost to this country by the councils who has to do work in your community, who has to find money to pay the garbage collectors, money to pay GPL, money to pay you could understand what is happening. And so it speaks volume of the way the PNC-led council thinks of the citizens of Georgetown. I want them to be aware that their best interest is not at heart. It does not lie with the PNC. And if you look in your community, see when last they would have done works. Every single week we complain about garbage collection. Every single day you complain about there's no lighting in your streets. And the persons that steps in to help is the ministers of the government, of the PPP government. So look at it carefully and know where the next time you have to vote, where to put that X. Because you're wasting your energy and time voting for a party who does not have your interests at heart, but only speaks for itself, where they can find a smooth bed to lie on and put you on the hard earth to lie on.
Councillor Jacobs?
Yes. You know, I want to speak to brand and I want to speak to track record because it's clear. The brand or the style of leadership you see from the PPC, the underground movement, so that you can make informed decisions, the people-centered decisions, the people-centered policies. This document shows us clearly that we should not go back. I mean, this might be nationally, but this document also shows that they need a clear change in who governs Georgetown. It's been over 57 years. It shows that you need a change. You need vibrant persons who also has the back ends of experienced persons who've been there, done that, who can guide us, who can also guide the nation as we see is unfolding right before our eyes, who has the ethos. And these are things that we need to properly examine, because we, the citizens, are the one that feel the full blunt of these decisions. So we need to make sure that when we have the opportunity, we make well-informed decisions. When we have the opportunity to cast that ballot, then at that moment, at that time, we need to ask ourselves some really important questions. And this is something that clearly shows who we should be placing our trust, who we should place our trust to have a better future and to bring prosperity. This is clear indication we need nothing else. But we're going to fight this as councillors on the opposing side. We're going to fight this to the end because we believe in making a better way for our citizens, and this is clearly not.
And sorry, the next time that you hear anybody complaining that there's no money at City Hall to pick up garbage, that the government is stifling the city council, remind them of this atrocious policy document that they attempted to pass at yesterday's
that they passed
at yesterday's statutory meeting. Just remind them who is responsible for that.
Who's stifling them? Who's stifling the
city?
citizens? Definitely not the government. It is the mayorship, the leadership, that is bringing these policies to be passed by a majority vote. And as I would have said, if they had a vision for the city of Georgetown, it would have been a better place, but they have no vision.
Right.
And so therefore they could see nothing of a bright Georgetown and a brighter future for the citizens under their leadership. Very, very poor management.
Thank you, councillors, for taking the time to delve into this issue. I wish you all the best of luck, and thank you to our viewers and our listeners for joining us for this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Derwin.